Γεια σας. Καλώς ήρθατε σε ένα ακόμη επεισόδιο των 10 Zone Profiles, Season 2, Cyprus 50 Years Later. Βρισκόμαστε και πάλι στην κυπριακή κοινότητα του Τορόντο και τους ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ για την ευγενική παραχώρηση του χώρου. Today we have with us a very unique person, I'll say, and why? Because when I see anything that is being posted on social media from her account, I feel very hungry all the time. So today I have with us Irene Matys. Hello, Irene.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor.
It's our honor that you accept to go through this journey with us, actually.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm good. You know, busy with the girls. We'll talk a little bit more about it with a cookbook that's coming out next spring.
Cookbook. Let's start from there then. Let's start from the good one.
Absolutely. So my journey with my cookbook started 2 years ago, and it was to leave a legacy for my daughters, and it's called My Cypriot Table. So the book tells my story of being a refugee, coming to Canada from Cyprus, but also it incorporates my Canadian roots and how I adapted to the change and to a new home and a new country. But still embraces all the Cypriot culture and roots from a farm-to-table Mediterranean diet aspect.
Thank you for doing that, because it's very rare to see someone from abroad, at least, to create a cookbook for our cuisine, actually, which we have a very unique cuisine because it's been influenced, and correct me if I'm wrong, from different parts, not just from Greece, but also from the Middle East, right?
Absolutely. There's a lot of Syrian, Lebanese, there's even French and Italian influence as well, Persian, obviously Turkish, Egyptian. So there's a lot. It's kind of a mismatch of flavors that makes it so unique. And it brings in all the surrounding Mediterranean and Middle East. So it is very unique. And one that's not very well known here in Canada, unfortunately, because I find when I say I'm from Cyprus, they're like, what part of Greece are you from? So it's always an education to let them know this little humble island in the middle of the Mediterranean is its own island.
We have our own stuff.
We do.
And I realize that we have something in common, that we have, both of us, tahini.
Oh, tahini.
In our house, right? And something that I like to have always.
Oh, tahini, tashin, as us Cypriots would say, it's in buckets in my home. Sesame seeds, and tahini is always in my home with lemon and olive oil. So those three things make the most incredible dressing that you'll ever enjoy.
You can use that dressing for everything.
Everything.
Especially on top of the salad. Everybody's laughing when I put that here on top of my salad, but it's so good.
It's absolutely good. And, you know, you have your batato salata, you have your crambo salata, you have your horiatiki salata, you know, all the different salads. The tahini, you can add it in everything. So
when I say Cyprus, for you, which food you think it's identified to you with Cyprus?
For me, it's cinnamon, it's sheftalia. You know, the smell over charcoal, the sound of the sea, the halloumi. You know, I remember the days, you know, we'd grab the watermelon or a halloumi sandwich with lunza, and it was wrapped in paper, and you'd open it up. Or gubes, you know, that frying of the guba with the citrus, the lemon. You know, these are all things that, you know, as soon as I get off the plane, I could smell them.
Yeah.
Like it's just...
Guba, it's a very also unique... It's basically the outside. Can you describe the outside part?
So it's like a croquette, as I call them. So it's made with bulgur on the outside, a crusted bulgur, and inside it's stuffed with aromatic meat, like with cinnamon, parsley, onions. Sometimes they put dry mint.
Yeah.
And you can also find a vegetarian version now in Cyprus where they make it with mushrooms.
Love that.
So
that's my favorite, actually, with mushrooms.
So I have a recipe in the book, by the way, and I have the vegetarian version as well as the meat version. So it's great for nistissima, you know, for people who are fasting. They have the option of having either the pork or the mushroom.
Can't wait for next year to get that.
I know, I'm excited. I'm excited to share it with the world.
Thank you for doing that, because it's very important to show the world what we're made of.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a beautiful island, you know, our beaches, the people, the architecture, the history. There's so much, the food. the wine, as we know, right? So there's so much that small little island has to offer with a big heart, that's for sure.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. And I want to ask you, basically if someone doesn't know you, who you are, Irene. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
So I was born in Famagusta, so in the north in Varossi, in 1970. And after the war, we immigrated to the south and lived in Larnaca. And then we moved to Limassol. But then in 1976, we were lucky enough to be sponsored by my aunt and uncle here in Canada, where we moved here. We lived in Wallaceburg, Ontario, which is southwestern Ontario, for a few years. And then eventually moved to Sarnia, Ontario, for many years. And then I met my husband and moved here and now live in Oakville, which is close to Toronto.
And I'm just going to take you back now because I feel like it's a lot of questions that it comes on my mind, and some of them they're about food, but now I have to be back on my subject about Cyprus, 1974. And what strikes me is basically how young you are at the time of the war. And I cannot relate, because if you ask me about memories of that age, it's hard for me to match what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about Cyprus at that time?
So, the memories I have is my mom's veranda. And I remember sitting on the veranda and coloring. I remember my grandfather was living a few doors down and he had chickens, and I remember going to the chickens. I remember the beach. The beach was, I think, my fondest memories, was going with my brother and my dad and my aunts and my cousins. Little bits and pieces of things that I remember. I could remember. I can tell you exactly what was in our house, where everything was, where my bedroom was, what color our tiles in the kitchen were, the photo on the wall in the kitchen. And one of the most fondest memories was, I remember my mom had this blanket and she would cook in the kitchen and she would put it out, and my brother was younger than me. And there was a green plastic bowl and my mom would fry patatas tianides. Like the smell of fried French fries takes me back to that moment always. Like it just gives me goosebumps, because I remember us sitting on that blanket and we would eat out of this bowl.
The smelling is part of how we create memories, and it's so much associated. That's why.
And I'm getting goosebumps just talking to you about it, Elisseos, because I remember, and my brother would eat them quickly, and by the time I would have one, he'd have 10, and I would be so upset because he would eat them all. But yeah, every time I smell patatas tianides, it's like this nostalgic sitting on that blanket in that green bowl and my mom in the kitchen.
Have you ever matched the same patatas tianides? Have you matched the way they I don't know how they made those patatas tianides, the way they fry them. I'm trying so many years to match the same.
You'll never match, and I'll tell you why. The soil in Cyprus for patatas is one of the most amazing nutrient-based soil. It's deep red, and they're called kokinochora, which is the red fields in the Sotira area of Cyprus. And Cyprus makes the world's best patatas. And I don't know if you know, Elisseos, but we import, Cypriots import a lot of potatoes around the world, especially in London, England. So it's not the oil they use, it's the actual patatas. And I talk about this in my book. And there is one place here in Canada that the potatoes are close, but not like Cyprus, and that's PEI, Prince Edward Island.
Oh,
I have recently visited, and their potatoes are grown in a similar red, nutrient-dense soil as us Cypriots. So no matter what, you'll never get that true taste.
Okay.
Unless you ship patatas from Cyprus.
So it's been also a tutorial this episode. Thank you. So I'm taking you back to that summer, 1974, almost 4. correct?
Yes.
Almost
Four
4.
at the time. Yep.
And where do we find little Irene?
Little Irene? During the war or?
Yeah.
So I remember the day it happened. I can tell you exactly where I was and what I was eating. I was sitting. It was early. We were sitting at my mom's table. It was my yaya and my brother and my mom. And I was eating chicken off a green plastic plate. My mom had green. Like, I remember everything was green. And I remember the screams, the loud noises, the bombs, and my tío Enrico barreling down the back door to take us because my dad went to serve, and my tío Enrico was a stradiodi. And the other memory I have of that specific time was when he pushed us off the army truck, and we were grabbed and we were running through these fields with barbed wire. And I remember us going into these barns with all these women and children.
So they came and they took you from your house?
So my tío Enrico, my dad radioed my tío Enrico and Elisseos, when my parents tell us these stories of, what happened to us, to fill in the pieces that we don't know or remember. My tío Enrico told us it was within 5 minutes where the Turkish army was coming in the front door, and my tío Enrico was grabbing us in from the back door, and within 5 minutes we wouldn't be here. And
that 5 minutes, basically, it makes a significant difference of you being here.
Be here, right?
How crazy is that?
That's, just hearing these stories is very emotional, and hearing my parents tell the story and the pain that they went through and the suffering to get us here today and to give us a better life. It's just incredible.
Those are very tough memories for such a young age to remember those things, and I'm assuming without you having an understanding what it was going on really, right? You've been told, okay, let's go now. Let's run away.
Yeah, it was basically, and my mom, I think for me is the screams from my mom and my yaya, and, and going into that barn and hearing the women and children, it was just the screams for me.
I think there are those kind of experiences. They stay embedded in our souls for some reason, and I think a lot of us, even people that they didn't went through a war, but hearing their parents describing those stories, it's a trauma.
It is a trauma. It is, and talking about, and I remember I have a little funny story. My mom always said that I was always the feisty one. Like, I always had something to say, and she remembers, and I remember the picky blankets, these dark gray picky blankets that they gave us to cover ourselves.
From the army
in those
scratchy ones.
The scratchy ones. And I used to complain that, they were scratchy, and they fed us soup and some sort of salami, I remember, and they wouldn't give the meat to the women because they didn't have enough, so they would give it to us kids. And my mom told me, I woke up, like, it was quiet and it was dark and we were all sleeping, and I woke up upset and yelling at my mom why she put me to sleep in between two boys. So it was everybody from all the women crying, and they all started laughing because I got up and I was so upset that I had to sleep between two little boys.
So basically, just for me to have a better picture about it, and they took you, your uncle took you out of your house, and they took you to a bar just to protect you temporarily.
Temporary, yeah. So,
and you have memories from that day.
Yes, there's that barn. Like, it was a refugee camp. It was like, it wasn't a barn. It was a camp. It was this refugee camp that we were based in, and it was in Oromithka that we were taken because they were everywhere, right? You couldn't put everybody in one area, so we were all divided. And these are stories, with the division and Oromithka from my parents. Because I didn't know the sense of where we were or where they put us. So yeah, and we spent almost 6 months in refugee camps.
Wow. And I'm thinking back to your story about you've been arguing with your mother during the night. Do you remember that moment?
I actually don't. I don't. And there's bits of, I don't remember living in Larnaca in the refugee homes.
Why do you believe you don't remember that?
Because it wasn't trauma. It wasn't tragic. I find that the trauma, it made such an impact on me. It's ingrained in me, like the noise.
Is there any parts in your, let's say, adult life that those kind of memories, they wake up, or it's something that it happens that it takes you back?
So at the beginning, when we first came here, thunderstorms. Thunderstorms really scared me because it felt like there was a bomb coming. So for many years, thunderstorms, even till today, when it's really bad thundering, I get this anxiety inside of me. It's not a good feeling.
It just awakes your emotions.
Emotions, yes.
And thank you for sharing this story. I understand it's not easy for you to share those details at the same time and those personal information. And thank you for doing that. I'm just trying to remember if you have any memories about how did you felt at that time. If you remember yourself, how feelings or emotions, or have you seen someone reacting in a certain way?
Yeah, like seeing my grandmother, my mom, my mom was screaming, and just all the women and children, the children were crying because their mom was screaming. All these women left by themselves because their husbands went to fight. And what did they have? They didn't have, they were just guns on feet, right? A little few grenades. It wasn't, they weren't equipped. Cyprus is a very...
They didn't expect that at the end of it.
No, they didn't. And, when they have tanks and fighter jets, my dad was telling us stories how he was on his foot holding a gun and running through the mountains. But yeah, I think for me, it's the screaming that, and the loud noise of the bombs that stick with me, and I remember.
You said that you stayed there for 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you went back to your home at any point, or did you, right?
So our story is very special. So my dad, when he fought in the war, he had a Turkish soldier friend who saved my dad and got him back to the United Nations to get him back to us. Well, that Turkish soldier friend of my dad lives in our house in the north on top.
Oh.
Now. And in 2003, when the lines were open and we could go back to our homes, it was a reunite. And
how did that feel?
So it was, my husband Derek was able to experience that with my family. And that was the first time we've been back since the war. And remember, we lost everything. Photos, jewelry, our belongings, our dignity, right? So a lot of, some of my aunts and friends of my parents who went back to see their homes, they didn't get the warm welcome that we did. And the reuniting of Mark and my dad and my parents was beyond emotional. It was, and we walked into, even before I walked into the house, my mom said to me, "Do you remember before you go in what the house looked like?" I could tell her to the T, color of my bed, the color of the furniture, where the kitchen was, what was on the wall, and she couldn't believe it. And we walked in, and Mark and his wife did not touch anything in our home. He left it the way it was and lived on top. And my dad said to Mark, "Why?" It was because I pray one day that you'll come back and we live together. And he came out, big box. And in that box were photos, were my parents' jewelry. getting a little emotional.
Take your time.
You know, my grandma had knitted, who had passed away, had knitted me some baby boots and a little scarf, like a little shakba as we call it. That was all there. And my parents, to this day, and Mer helped my parents get all those belongings back to the south so we can bring them back home to Canada. And my parents have a beautiful wedding photo with a bullet through it, framed in their home today. So we were able to recover some photos, some jewelry, some memories that we lost. And it was hard. It was very emotional. And 2 years ago when I started shooting my book, I went back and I went and saw Mer, and he welcomed me with open arms. I think of him as family. And I took pictures of my home now. I went to visit my dad's village, Gomi Kabir, where my grandfather is buried. So I went to the cemetery. So I was able to visit my grandfather's grave, my dad's childhood home, my mom's, where I was born, and there'll be photos in the book. So I was given that opportunity to go over and do that.
Wow, I can somehow relate to your journey about the fact that you went back to your house. And as you said earlier, many of the people that they went back, they didn't have the same welcoming.
No.
And I can guarantee that because I've seen it.
Yes.
When we went with my family, how the behavior it was. So it's very important that you have someone staying at your house that that is part of your family, as you said, and that shows how we are as a nation, that we want that peace. We want
the harmony.
Yeah, we don't want. Nobody wants a war at the end of the day, and it must be very. Thinking about it, I see you got emotional, and it's very normal because going through a war, and then after 20 years, going back to the same place and seeing everything at the same condition, it's hard for anyone not to get emotional about it. And you telling me right now that you have a picture with your parents with a bullet, that's kind of, I think that's the only picture that I will have on my mind right now. And I noticed that you brought some pictures today with you. Is that part of the pictures that
will be in the book?
In the book, and that's the pictures that they gave you when you went back?
Yes, we have a few more, but they were at my mom and dad's, so I didn't have them. But these are specific ones that I'm going to be sharing in the book. That we have. We've lost a lot, so. And we're just very grateful and thankful that we were one of the lucky ones to have my dad's friend or soldier in our house. And he said to us, anytime, come back, anytime.
I can't wait to see the pictures in your book. But is there any picture that you want to share with us today? Something that it means something more significant to you?
Yes. So this picture here, Elisseos, that's me. So that was taken as a refugee. So I can get sponsored to support my mom, and because we lost everything. So, through the United Nations. And so that was the photo they took to submit for sponsorship. And a doctor in Philadelphia fell in love with my cheeks and I was sponsored by him. So he would send money to help clothe me and feed us, and yeah.
It was a kind of a program, sponsored program, so they can support the family.
Yes, the refugee children and the family, yes.
How we believe that some things that we are hearing from happening to other parts of the world, that it can get so close to us. And this is the closest I got, to be honest. And thank you for sharing this one. Thank you.
And this one is me on my veranda as a baby in my stroller. So we were able to capture this one, which is amazing. Amazing.
Well, Such an artistic picture, to be honest.
So I have a photo of the same. I have a photo of the same veranda to put in the book now, the present day. And this is beautiful Varosi, and this is the beach. And Varosi was the Caribbean of Europe, Cyprus. You know, aristocrats, kings. You know, it was just paradise. The beaches were beautiful.
They're very popular because of the white
sand and aqua blue waters, and the hotels along the white sand beaches, all the beautiful hotels and restaurants.
They were actually more advanced at the time from other parts of the
world. Yes. And this is us at the beach. As
the whole family?
Yeah. Well, my mom, it's my aunt. My mom, I think, took the picture. But my dad, my brother, my cousins, my aunt.
What a beautiful picture.
And then we talked about the badades. So
yes.
My mom and dad's parents were farmers. And this is my mom right here. And she's harvesting badades in Cyprus, in north of Cyprus.
Basically, it's very associated with what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this photo is going to make it in the book because there's so many recipes in the book about badades, because us Cypriots, we love our badades.
Of course, yes. And I can see, you know, how you try through what you're doing with the food, with the farming, and to keep your family closer.
Absolutely. And, you know, growing up, my mom always had a garden. And I remember because we were refugees and we didn't have money, and, you know, we relied on missions and food stamps, you know, soup kitchens to help. Because my aunt and uncle, they weren't well off either. And that's a family of 4 that came. And I remember every summer, my brother and I would have to go, we'd have to go tomato picking with my mom because we needed money. And us kids, the more the baskets my mom would fill, and it was 10 cents a basket she would get. And the bus would pick us up at 6 in the morning, and we wouldn't get home till 6 at night. And all we did was to pick tomatoes all day. Those were our summers.
Important. You created those important skills now and memories.
And, you know, it was before the pandemic. I brought my mom to the farm where I am now at Plan B Organics in Hamilton, and we actually picked tomatoes together. And it was quite a special day for sure.
You like the circle, you know, it's coming back to you. And
I enjoy it now. Back then we'd cry. We
want to go play.
We were children. We wanted to go play, and we'd get in trouble because we would throw tomatoes at each other, me and my brother, and that cost my mom money, right? So, yeah, now it's something that I'm passionate about.
Is it one of your children that has the same passion with food?
Yes, actually, 2 of them. Well, to be honest, all 3 of them, all 3 girls, especially my oldest, Zoe, she now makes the Cypriot food. And, you know, now that I'm a yaya, and we have our Lucas, who's going to be 1 shortly, you know, he's eating gubepia, grape leaves.
Teach them from a very young age.
He's eating gologasi, you know, like, so he's...
Can you explain gologasi?
Gologasi it's taro. And again, it's very popular in Cyprus because of the weather, right? So it grows in the soil, and it's so delicious again. Anything that grows in the soil in Cyprus is amazing.
Specifically the red soil?
The red soil. And so it looks like a potato. It's like a potato, I would call it, like taro potato. And it's sauteed, and it's got tomato in it, tomato paste with celery and lemon. And we serve it with gubepia and radishes and a good thing of psomi to dip in. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. And that recipe's also in the book. So excited to share that one as well.
Amazing. Do you have any other pictures to share?
I do. So
thank you for coming here with prepare with the pictures.
Oh, and this is before the war. And this is my tia, who is it? My tia Sodo, my tia Andrula, my dad. So they used to always pack a picnic and go to those mountains.
Of course, those are our traditions, you know. Pack food and go to the mountains.
And then this is my dad in those mountains with his fugu making souvla. And this was,
of course, it's not the whole animal on.
No, this is just pieces, as we say.
which is it's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
And and that's very significant. Why they're amazing, I'm not just saying just to say something. It's so significant to our culture.
It is.
And when you see those pictures, yes, this is Cyprus. In few pictures, you just describe who we are. And that's really important for us to, share those stories. And thank you for doing the book again.
Yeah.
It's so important. It's something that is going to stay. These videos, they will stay.
They will stay, and it'll be a legacy. It's not only a legacy for my girls, but it's also to share with the world who we are, what Cyprus is, and what it has to offer, and what happened to the Cypriot people. So, I'm really, really excited for this book to come alive. It's a very special book.
I look forward to it. And I'm going back to you. When it was the date that you came in Canada?
So it was April 16th, 1976 when we arrived.
What did you bring with you when you came? Do you remember what your family?
Yes. One suitcase full of our belongings. That was it. And I remember what I was wearing that day. And my mom took a picture. It was a little plaid kilt little skirt with a bright yellow turtleneck. And my hair was in pigtails.
What I want to understand is a little bit, when you came here, how was the process you've been in Cyprus until the age of 6?
6, yeah.
And you have memories in Cyprus too, but how it was for a kid coming to Canada at that age?
Not good. Different lifestyle, different country. Didn't speak a word of English, had no friends. Everything we were comfortable with was gone. We came to a place where we knew nothing. It was big. It was very unfamiliar. It was scary, very scary. It was the unknown for us.
And where did you first stay when you came in Canada?
So we arrived in Toronto and stayed in Scarborough at my aunt's. Not very long. We lived in her basement. And then my other aunt was living in Wallaceburg, Ontario, which is, like I said, in southwestern Ontario, a small little town where she had more space for us. So we moved with them. And my dad was working at a restaurant as a line cook. Well, he started as a dishwasher and then a line cook in Wallaceburg, Ontario. And we were there for a few years until my dad was able to save money, my mom and dad. Then he had the opportunity to buy a pizza place in Sarnia.
Which I guess is a very popular pizza place.
Yes, it is. It's a very popular pizza place.
Everybody says they know I've heard the name, and when you say the name, everybody knows the place.
Everybody knows Elisseos Pizza on Exmo Street in Sarnia. Home of the pizza and home of the puffio. Very popular. And that was in 1980 that my dad saved up money and got a loan to start making pizzas and starting a life for us in Sarnia.
Seeing your parents going through that journey, you're their daughter, and you can disengage for somehow and describe, how do you see your parents?
I see my parents as heroes. So much respect.
And they are because they've been on their journey. They brought their family here. They established a life for them. And I always, when I see older people that they came through a war and they came here, and they did their best to make the best for them and for their family. They work hard. They relocate to a different country. They had to learn the different culture now.
Yes.
And make this easier also for their kids in ways that they didn't know.
And the sacrifices to give us a better life, I now that I'm a mother and I have everything accessible to me, and there's some challenges, but I just can't imagine my mom and dad, what they had to go through to raise my brother and I and give us this amazing life that we have.
And you're a hero too.
Oh.
You are.
Yeah.
You went through that too with your family.
Mm-hmm.
you get emotional and vulnerable through a camera right now.
Yeah.
Right? So why I'm saying this, because I feel like we feel somehow, I'll talk about the Cypriots. I've seen it in the different ways and forms in my family and the people that I know, people that they went through the war. They feel somehow, hope I'm wrong, but it's what my sense is, we feel kind of shamed about what happened. We feel embarrassed. We try to hold our emotions. We try not to cry. We are very proud as a nation. And I guess all of our parents, families that they are older than us, we've seen them went through such a impactful stage incidents in their life, and they survived.
They survived. And, I'm a true believer that, accepting it and crying and talking about it, it's all part of the healing process and the forgiveness. That's the way I see it. And I wish my parents did more of that, because now that they're at the age they are and these memories happen and they're aging, it's affecting them now from a depression perspective, from grieving.
Because they didn't have the time to deal with it.
Not the time. They didn't believe in therapists. It was embarrassing to have someone, and as you talk about the embarrassment. And now as they get older and they're remembering and the years are going by and they're losing family and friends, it's starting to affect them emotionally and physically. And I see it in my parents.
I'm happy that I got the opportunity to bring that on, because I've seen it. And what I want to say is that it's not our fault that we went through a war at the end of the day. We shouldn't feel embarrassed or ashamed about a war. It happens to us. We didn't ask for it.
No. But we need to tell our story.
Yes.
We need to share our story so generations to come will know, will be educated. But also, it's an honor. It's to honor and keep the heritage and the culture alive for those before us, for those soldiers who fought for us, for our grandfathers, our fathers, the women, the children, like all before us. Like, the legacy needs to continue, and the culture and the heritage, and that's why it's so important.
It's been 50 years.
50 years.
And it's an issue that is still in effect. It's still affecting us as a nation. We didn't see any solution.
There's no resolution, no solution.
Do you believe that? Do you want to send a message, or do you want to send what is your wish as a Cypriot, Greek Cypriot?
My wish is unity, prosperity, harmony. There's no going back. What we lost is what we lost. And I think going forward as a new generation, we need to understand that we're all human. It's not the people's fault, right? So for me, for Cyprus, I want peace. I want harmony. I want unity. I want prosperity. I want it to grow in culture, in diversity. That's my wish for Cyprus. It's a beautiful island. It's beautiful people, the food. It's a very, I feel like I want to say it's humble. It's just so, and that's my wish. And, I'd like to say we get it all back, but I don't know if that will ever happen.
The time will show us.
Yes.
I have a last question. let's say you have this little girl here in front of you, what do you want to say to this little girl?
Well, I'd give her the biggest hug first. And I would say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of where you were and where you are today, and that everything is going to be okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry if I brought you into tears.
It's okay.
It was not my intention.
It's okay. It's good tears. They're really happy and good tears. Yes, I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elisseos.